During COVID, when I started writing this book, there was was a really annoying article that popped up from BBC saying, "Oh, Elon Musk had just become the richest man in the world, and these are the 6 things that you could learn from his amazing journey, and that means that you could do it too, essentially, right?" And it was all things like dream big, and it's not about the money, and it was really quite striking to me looking at this, and this is before he took over Twitter, stroke X, that this story of success is told without taking into context the time that he was born and where he was born. Elon Musk was born in apartheid South Africa as a white man. How can you not say that at least some of his success is down to the fact that he was seen as a superior race when he was born, when he was offered opportunities and didn't have to compete with the vast majority of the population? How is that just missing from the story, right? And this is what we see time and time again, just complete stripping out of that context. There's lots of debate and stories about Elon Musk's dad. Apparently some people say he owned an emerald mine. He says that's not true. But his dad was certainly rich enough to buy him a computer at that time, was able to send him to a conference where he could learn more about this new thing in a way that most people around the world would not be able to afford to do. That's surely part of his success. How about another story of the American dream? What about Oprah Winfrey? Now, she was born poor. She had a difficult childhood. She was molested at a young age, and then has this incredible story of becoming, the queen of daytime TV and one of the most famous, richest women in the world. Now, I'm not going to say disparaging things about Oprah Winfrey. I think her story is incredible. But how many Oprah Winfreys are there? She's an exception. And we often tell these stories about these exceptions that do have these meteoric rises. And we don't think, well, actually, why is she an exception? What is it about the rules of the game that mean that people like her are so few and far between, and we can celebrate her? What we say about her is that you could be like that too. If you grew up in care, or you grew up with problems with your parents and had to be living with your grandparents, they'll say, well, look, you could just be like Oprah Winfrey. But she's so rare. And instead of thinking about how do we change the rules of the game, we think, how can people just emulate these very rare stories, which also often, when you go into the detail, are about some chance meeting with a teacher along the way, or someone that said, actually, I noticed something in you that means that you could be on TV. And that chance meeting changed her life. You don't hear about all the Oprahs along the way that actually didn't make it and struggled for years and ended up in low-paid work. You don't hear those stories, right? So there's this bias in the stories that we're told as well. But by telling this story, I'm romanticizing something that we call social mobility, a story of going from somewhere where you were poor to getting to the top, whatever that might look like, going to an elite university. Because right now, it's a ruse to hide underlying levels of inequality and structural issues. It's a way in which to individualize the problem, in which to say, if you don't do well in life, it's not because the economy is working against you or there's racism. It's because you, as an individual, have done something wrong. The idea is, that essentially it's 99% hard work. This is a kind of depiction of the different key factors that matter in where you end up if you end up at the top. So this blue square here represents about 2/3 of the determining factors. Can anyone take a guess of what that factor might be? So at a global level, it's the country you're born in. How many of us here had a choice about what country we were born in? Absolutely none of us. The other green bar there then is the wealth of your parents. I won't mention that. Of course, it's a huge part of it. Once you strip out country, the wealth of your parents. And this white bar is kind of like the unknowns. Things like, yes, the importance of education, but also things And education, right, is really heavily linked to the wealth of your parents. It's quite hard to strip this out. It's really heavily linked to what country you were born in and what income level you were born in within that country. My mum was from Pakistan, and I've seen most of my family there are at best lower middle class, and of course the education access that they have is not good at all. With those that are in the elite circles, their education actually was probably in some ways better than mine, and their opportunities to go to elite universities were probably better than mine from a state school in this country. So this white bar is is the point about the other factors, and in reality, most of that, as I said, you can't determine which family you're born in, you can't determine which country you're born in. It's actually 99% luck. You would have seen all the debate about nepo babies, which is this idea that a lot of people in the entertainment industry, their kids get a leg up and essentially also can become famous. But it happens in all types of industries, including politics. Actually, people often get upset if you say anything, which is true of Elon Musk as well, because what they want the story to be is that it's all down to my hard work. They hate the idea that someone is pointing out that they've had these privileges, which I find frustrating, because I am happy to admit that my success is not all down to me. Absolutely not, right? And so, one of the things in telling this story that they want you to think is not only that it can be you as well, and you could also follow Elon Musk's route if you just think big and don't think about the money and follow this six points from this BBC article. It's also that these people are to be lauded. They're to be held up. They're not to be taxed. Their efforts must be seen as genius. One of the things I do in the book is to look behind how some of the richest people got rich. This is the list of the richest people on earth. And, you can go through, you can look at someone like Jeff Bezos, and you can look at employment practices at Amazon. You can look at some of Bill Gates, for instance, and the ways in which he flaunted competition law and some of what was done at Microsoft. These are not just riches by ingenuity and creating loads of jobs. There are crimes behind some of the ways in which these people have got rich. And when I looked at the rich list, it was quite striking how much, and when the sorts of industries that people were working in and were gaining the most wealth. And one of the most prominent ones was property wealth, right? And there were some examples of people that had come from relatively working class backgrounds that had then owned these big property development companies and got in the rich list. And they might be then, use the stories as like, wow, look, this person did it, so could you. But on that journey, the properties they are selling are 100% things that their families could never have afforded. In order for them to get rich, they've had to essentially cater for the people already doing well. And, you can argue this, but sell their soul, forget what their background was. The belief that I could be rich one day, or the belief that the rich are there because they deserve it, is one of the fundamental reasons why we don't see inequality addressed. Let's stop. Let's think again. And let's really just try and turn this idea of social mobility as the ultimate litmus test for society on its head.